So I have this video online from Internet Week in 2012 in which I'm talking about how to learn how to code, and I recommend Ruby on Rails as a framework for people to learn. Now it's a bit of an old video, but it has almost 1.2 million views. So a lot of people watch it and then send me an email afterwards and ask me, is Rails still useful? Should I still learn Rails, or has any of your advice changed? And it's something I've thought a lot about in the last, almost 5 years. I still absolutely think that Ruby on Rails is probably the best place for beginners to start, and there's a few reasons for it. I've learned a few languages since then, and I've checked out Python and Python's web application framework, Django, and learned JavaScript and learned mobile frameworks and things like that. And the reason I think Ruby on Rails is still great for beginners is, first of all, a lot of huge websites are built in Rails, some of the biggest in the world. Shopify, Hulu, Groupon, Kickstarter, Airbnb, like these kind of companies. So yes, it's certainly absolutely still relevant. But number two, the biggest thing is it's still the best and easiest thing for beginners to learn. It's a great introduction because Ruby is a very easy language for beginners. It's very forgiving in the sense that you can make mistakes, or you can leave out parentheses and things like that. You don't need to put semicolons at the end of lines. You don't need to tab stuff in, and it'll still work a lot of the times. So when you're first starting, you don't have to be focusing on like the little syntax stuff and making sure every character is in the right place. It'll still work, and that helps a lot with the cognitive learning. But probably the biggest reason why it's still useful is it just has like a really fantastic community for teaching beginners. The fact that there's kind of a recommendation for how you build your app, how you set stuff up, what tools you use, make it a lot less scary and overwhelming for beginners than a community that is a little less opinionated, where you can kind of customize everything yourself. I'll give an example of this. So I built my first app in Django recently, which is Python. And in this language, there's a lot more setup that you have to do. Now, for a lot of people who are already coders, this is actually better than a framework like Ruby on Rails, because they might have their specific tool that they want to use or their specific way of doing it, and Django makes that easier. And with something like Rails, it's kind of the defaults are already set and you have to go out of your way to change them. But when you're a beginner, you don't really have an opinion about the right tool to use. And the Rails community is really good about saying, well, this one is good enough for most of your use cases. And so we're just going to go with it by default. Another reason why I think a lot of people should start with Ruby on Rails is that even though it's a web application framework for building web apps, or basically websites, it's not necessarily as useful for things like scrapers or writing scripts, or even like the really complex numbers kind of approach. I think for most people who want to learn how to code, they like to see something that they have actually produced visually in front of them that they can share with other people, and that ability to make a change, see the change in your browser, and quickly iterate is really, really cool and useful. So those are the reasons why I think Ruby on Rails is still absolutely relevant for beginners. Rails 5 is about to come out, so there's going to be some really cool changes and updates. And I just don't think there's any other tool out there that is far enough along that really, is mature enough that beginners should be focusing on right now. So that's my advice. If you like this video, subscribe to Founder Friday with this button. Click the thumbs up button to say you like it. And if you have any questions or thoughts, post them in the comments below. And any other topics you'd like me to address, post them there as well. I read those. Thanks.